Welcome, fellow wizards, to the Indie Game Lunch Hour. Today we're talking with Nick D'Amico about LinkedIn cold calling and network building.
The Indie Game Lunch Hour.
In our live magical podcast, we give game devs the chance to hear stories of breaking in from industry experts, as well as directly ask them questions about their areas of expertise in the second half of each episode. This is a mostly unedited recording of a weekly event. My cat just fell off a table of a there's your proof right there. This is a mostly unedited recording of a weekly event we host on our Discord Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern time. So feel free to swing by and join us for the next one. Ask your own questions live. I'm your host, Willem Delmenthal, the headmaster of the Indie Game Academy and the Wizard of Joy. And joining me today is Nick D'Amico. Nick is actually, fascinatingly, one of the very first students we ever had at the school. He was in the very first cohort of IGA Level 3, back before there were levels and back before we were even the Indie Game Academy. We were called Hackubator at that time. Nick, I don't know why you joined. But it's lovely to have you back, man. It's been a very long time since we've talked. Nick has worked his way through the industry and now is working at Creators Corp as a level designer, which is a interesting story we're going to have to get out of you. It's so wonderful to have you here today, Nick. What are you having for lunch?
Thank you, Will. Yeah, I think we met at GDC like 2020, and it was a funny thing because at the time I was working for my first indie, and they were gonna fly me out, and I think it was like a week before GDC, like COVID happened, and like the whole world just like flipped. So like I think we just met online, and you asked me like, hey, do you think this is like a cool idea? And then, I mean, we're here now. So um 4 years, yeah, 3 4 years later, it's
Wow.
crazy how IJ's really grown, and so congrats on
Yeah,
that.
awesome. I mean, thank you. Yeah, it's wonderful to have you in here. And it's so funny. I can remember that time period, and I'll still actually use that time period as an example when people are talking about starting their own studios or their own ventures, whatever they may be. Because that time period was basically just like kind of shooting the shit with people I ran into who maybe would think it was cool. And a lot of IGA's DNA is because of people like you, Nick. And giving me thoughts, asking questions, chatting until eventually we tried the first cohort, which honestly, a lot of what that first cohort was still exists. We've kind of just like doubled down and made it better. Interesting one for you, by the way. I don't know if you even remember this. I pitched a 3-month program to you. You said that doesn't sound long enough. It should be 6 months. I stuck with 3 months. Now it's 4 months because 3 months wasn't long enough. So you're right. The whole time.
Yeah, it's what it is. It's like especially at that time, like you know you it's crazy how fast this industry changes over time. I mean, I'm still trying to kind of like I'm kind of in, kind of out. Like it's just like I'm still very much a junior and trying to learn like so much and trying to get my way in. And like I know it's a lot of people right now, especially with just kind of the bubble that's popped with post COVID, and it's just a tough time for everyone. It's like
Hmm.
you talk to so many people, and just this when you're on LinkedIn, daily, you see it all the time. Um, but yeah, it's just like you have to keep learning, and there's like it's tough at the beginning because you don't really know what's what. Like you don't know the hill that you're trying to climb. And I'm
Hmm.
still trying to figure out the hill. I think regardless, like even if you're a junior, mid, even sometimes senior, sometimes it's even hard to even fully understand like this hill that is, specializing in a very specific thing. Um, and with job titles these days, you could be like a senior world landscape animator, technical animator. Like, what I mean? It's just they're trying to hyper specialize everything, which is like I think it has its pluses, but it also has its negatives too. It's good that we as developers getting like more specialized in what we do and getting better at what we do, but um it also causes for just lack of like fully understanding like what each other's kind of positions are and what they do. And I think that's part of the like indie magic that's kind of we don't really see that with bigger studios, even like double A studios sometimes. Um, yeah, it's a very interesting time.
Hmm. I 100% agree. The one thing that I was seeing recently that has me like scared, I'm going to give everybody a friendly pat on the back after I tell you why I'm scared, is AI video. And that whole like, I think everybody has seen the meme or it's been going around. You can Google it pretty easily of AI video a year ago versus now. And now we're seeing video that is like already near indistinguishable from real video, actual recorded video, versus a year ago, it was this messy blob that we didn't need to worry about. But 1 year later, video is already to the point where it could potentially replace jobs and could replace work. Um, that scares me, and is a crazy time in games. There's all kinds of things that are going on that are expanding rapidly, moving rapidly. AI is coming in force. I'm a little bit less worried about AI than some people, and that's largely because it has always been true that we have created more tools that allow greater automation, but we have always found other ways to employ people. So I think, it's just going to change. The landscape of how games work is going to change. Probably it'll actually wind up leading to a bunch of really small studios, because suddenly the individual creator can do so much with AI tools. So we'll see. It's an interesting world for sure. Now, this is a great place to start. I'm glad we're having the conversation, but where we usually start here on the show is to ask for your origin story. So, Nick, I would love to hear about your origin in games and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so it's been a long, few years. I think I'm gonna go all the way back to like 2018. So that's, I'm like um, I'm in college. I'm like doing film at this time. It's my family's kind of like has a film background. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go film. This is something I've kind of wanted to write for a long time. Um, at the time I was like going on set, screenplays, just like working with lights, cameras, audio equipment, that kind of thing. But then I see a class and it's like 3D like art and animation. I'm like, I gotta like try this out. And I took it. It was it wasn't an easy course. I think I was like one of the only people out of that course, and they still have the course at my college. But like most people that take the course are just like, yeah, I don't want to ever touch this ever again. I loved it. I was like, dude, I can make worlds, I can make characters, like I can make stuff move. Like
Hmm.
this is so cool. Um, and I just like at the time was just trying to learn Blender, and I got lucky. Got internship at an indie studio. I was working under my first boss was an ex Rockstar dev. He was in the industry for like 20 years.
Hmm.
Um, he goes all the way back to San Andreas. That was like his first big game.
That was super
Um,
cool.
yeah, and I mean, I've learned a lot. Like I learned a lot from that time. Like it was about like a I was there for like almost 2 years.
Hmm.
First part was like internship, and then I was kind of on there as like I started as a 3D modeler intern, and then I became like kind of a game designer and kind of project supervisor. So I was like supervising art, but I was also like writing docs, doing a little scripting, level design. I'm more like honestly doing a lot of level design at that point in time too, and that was UE4 at the time. But I think at one point I was just like, I didn't go to school for game dev, so I really should kind of go back and learn. I think during that point in time, that's when I did IGA, and I think that also kind of told me like I still have a lot, just to even get me at a foundational standpoint. Like there's
Hmm.
considerable amount for me to learn.
You hit the
Um,
Dunning Kruger curve. You went, oh,
yeah,
there's a lot here.
yeah, it's and it's like I think the more I've got into game dev, the more I'm like, yeah, it's just so much. Um, Regardless of what like you can specialize as much as you want, but it's just like this. Even in specialization, there's like just different skill trees. It's like you can have the game dev skill tree, but like, dude, there's like the level design skill tree just in itself is vast. Um, Especially just the kind of the nature of level design in general.
Hmm.
Um, but um, but yeah, so I worked for about year and a half, 2 years. If you consider my internship. Then I went back to school. I took there's a school in Vancouver called Van Arts, and it's a 1 year program, and it's just like they are trying to get you like industry ready as quickly as possible.
Hmm.
So like the first 3 months is just like 3D and game fundamentals. Then you're just like, yo, you got to make a game in like 6 weeks. So do that. And then I think the next 3 months is like just you work on it. I think it's not even 3 months. It's really like the 2 months you work on a game with like a team. Um, and then like after that, it's just straight up like portfolio work. That's literally the course. Um, and anybody who's graduated from Van Arts will tell you it's just like it's not an easy course. It's a very tough. Um,
Hmm.
it's you learn a lot, but it's not. They're kind of getting. I hate to say it, but they're kind of getting you ready for crunch.
Hmm.
And just they get you ready for that, just the reality of the game industry. Um, so it's tough, but I learned a lot. I learned a lot about UE5 especially. UE4, UE5. Got Maya, just a lot of the art tools as well, just like Substance Painter, Substance Designer, um, just all these different Photoshop. I got a lot of better. I use Photoshop quite a bit now with just like level layouts and stuff, and just like creating my own tools that way. And there's like it's interesting what and I've even used Photoshop for just like texture optimization and stuff like that too. It's crazy how you use all these different tools for different reasons, right?
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, after Van Arts, I was just kind of like towards the end of that, and just after Van Arts, I kind of joined a small little studio. It was kind of a startup studio called Be Wild. I was working for basically for free, but I was working under the basically producer. Like I kind of just showed like, hey, I have leadership skills, I have leadership experience. Like I can help put this in a better place. Um, and I think they're doing good now. I was there for about like 6 months, and I think they're almost done with their vertical slice, so that's really good. Um, but after that, I was just kind of like, okay, I really just want to focus on job search, and that's when things started really kind of getting, the industry was really things were getting too good. I think this is like start of 2023, right? So
Hmm.
the first 6 months of that year were just like it was just brutal. Like I just couldn't. Um, it was hard stuff just even just do like personal work just to get better. Just everything felt very like. I mean, all you would hear every day is just like layoffs or just it's just not a
It's
we're
kind of
like
this like interesting like group PTSD that we've all been through now, because like we all went through that even if we had work. I was working at InView during the worst of it, and it was round after round after round of layoffs. So like even for those who had work, it was this like terrifying time period where it felt like there were snipers in all the buildings. And then if you didn't have work, of course, you're just seeing fewer and fewer jobs. um, Worth mentioning, everybody has gone through that together, for whatever that's worth.
mhm. Yeah, it's like it really is. You talk like and that was even before I really started getting like really active on LinkedIn, I think, and like it's just yeah, it wasn't. I know like a lot of people were suffering for a lot of different things. I was dealing with a lot of personal things at that time too, and just trying to figure it out. But eventually, my colleague of mine from school was like, "Hey, you want to just start building games?" And I think that's when things just started to click. Like I was like, "Dude, let's just do it." So we already had a build like I would say like a demo build in like I don't know 8 weeks. like
Damn.
um I did all the blueprinting. He just did all the art, and we just like bam, just like we got that done very quickly. And then like a colleague from mine, so Mike's our artist, and then John is our I'm like the level and gameplay guy. Mike's our just lead artist, and then John is our like he's our systems and AI. And like he came on, and like that was just the three of us beginning. We made the Chad, which was like my first true like Steam game, and now we're really cooking now. We got another system. He's like Adam's like John's close colleague from Full Sail, and he's like our system and UI guy. So we have like the four of us, and then we have like another like 6, 7 people like helping us like with just different areas.
Hmm.
Um, and now we just got our second prototype build done. We're going from prototype build to like a pre-alpha build, and we got a lot of like the systems and just a lot of the functionality down. Got a few like levels. Um, Getting like art, like we're messing around. Like I've been really dabbling into the ALS system, which is the for those who don't know is the advanced locomotion for Unreal Engine.
Hmm.
And it's very like if you're not super familiar with locomotion, especially this type of system, is very complicated.
Hmm.
Um, so we've been dabbling that. We're using MetaHuman for some of our character art, and just we're going for more like realistic look with this game. But it's really come along. I'm really proud of like what we're doing, and the kind of like the team of really going close with these guys and really trying to build a studio. We have a few more steps really before we kind of like really get that LLC in order.
Hmm.
Um, but that's kind of the key before we put out this next game, which hard to tell when we'll fully just go out and just release it to the world. But I definitely don't think it's definitely gonna be this year. I feel very confident in saying that.
Hmm.
Um, but outside of that, just have to wait and see. But yeah, after like did that for a while, eventually like just this like really at the end of 2023, that's when I got lucky through LinkedIn. My current producer just reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, do you want to work on UEFN Fortnite maps?"
Hmm.
Um, and that's basically what I've been doing for the last 2 3 months now is just working on UEFN maps. And it's not the first level editor I've messed with. Like I messed with Gek. Um, if you know me, like I'm a big Bethesda fan. I would love to work at Bethesda one day, and part of my portfolio is geared towards that. Um, so I just really enjoy working. It's I think just a bit of advice for any level designers out there is like you need to. It's good to work in game engines, but you also really do need to work in level editors.
Hmm.
Steve Lee is a big proponent of this. Like if you're part of his Discord or just if you've heard of him through LinkedIn, just his YouTube, like he talks a lot about why as a level designer you need to be using it's great. Like, I think you should use both. Like I don't think you should choose one over the other.
Hmm.
um, but if you can't use a level editor and you join a company and they're not using like Unreal Engine or Unity, you're probably gonna be a tough time.
Hmm.
Um, at least that's just my opinion. But um, to put a fork in this origin story of mine, now I work in UEFN, which is basically a gutted version of like Unreal Engine 5.4. And you just kind of have to like kind of work around like limitations and stuff. And you learn a lot. I've learned a lot, especially with art, just art optimization and look
Hmm.
development. um and it's also as a level as I'm doing all sorts of things, right? It's like especially in indie you got to wear like a bunch of hats. So
Yeah. Awesome.
yeah.
There's a lot to pull out of that story. As always, this is part of the reason that I love this being the first question of the podcast. Because there's every one of these stories, I think, is like a little bit of hope for the audience. At least I hope that's how everyone hears it. I think there's a few things I want to touch on. First of all, that very first job, that very first internship. How did you actually land that one? What was the story there?
Dude, I think I just got lucky, to be honest with you. Like I was in college, I was just applying, and I just happened to apply to the right indie studio, and they were like, they saw my work, and it was like, you're starting out, but like, I think at that point in time, it's so much easier too. Just like I didn't know enough. Like if I was applying now with the level of skill I had back then, they forget about it. Like it just wouldn't happen. I wouldn't be in the game industry. Like I probably just would never. Like definitely have to go back to school. Like it just wouldn't work.
Hmm.
Um, Now it's like and I feel especially for like our art friends, it's just like, dude, it's really like it's tough for designers, but like art,
Hmm.
like I hear all the time like those jobs are going overseas, and it's just like, oh my, like even back then when I was like working at Smashing Graphics, my boss was telling me how Rockstar was like a lot of their art was being done in Egypt. Like they were like
Hmm.
shipping those jobs over there, and like they just get it for cheaper, and they make art assets like from there, and that's just how like I think from even now that's what they're doing. My studio, like we I mean we're an indie studio, but like a lot of our assets come from English, um, Ukraine studio.
Hmm.
uh, so like, um, it's tough. Like being an artist, I know like, and I'm a level designer, but I do have I think I have considerable chops with like 3D. Like I can, I'm not much of a 2D artist. Like I've dabbled in pixel art, but outside of that, like, yeah, I can use Photoshop, but I'm not doing concept renders and
Hmm.
game ready 2D assets.
Yeah.
But you know, if you need me to do some tech art and like Unreal, like yeah, I could mess around with that.
Get your hands dirty in that. I think that multidisciplinary skill is always valuable. It does seem like the industry wants you to specialize, but a little bit of more than just your field, I think, is always useful. Um,
Hmm.
I love that you're able to acknowledge and willing to acknowledge that there was just some luck that went into getting some of these roles, especially this very first one. Mark down in the comments says, "I appreciate somebody who always recognizes that sometimes things are just the right place, the right time." I want to so acknowledge that, yes, sometimes it's just luck, but I also want to push back on that a little bit, um, and point out that yes, it was the right place, right time, but also you have consistently been making sure that you have the skills, you're building up the portfolio, and you're practicing the things that you know you got to practice, which means when luck strikes, you're kind of ready to receive it. And then also you are putting yourself out there, and that I've run this podcast long enough now. We're approaching. I think we might have already passed 100 interviews. I don't know. We've done quite a few episodes now, and one of the consistent things that I hear over and over again in these origin stories is, I had the skills I needed. I had worked on a couple of games, and somebody thought they'd give me a chance. Um, And that is the exact same thing that has happened to me multiple times in my career. And it's the exact same thing that I've heard from a lot of people as well. So, just for the audience, I think the first thing we can learn from Nick is always practice the skills. If nothing else, I say this all the time, and you'll hear this from so many other people. Don't ignore it. It's the truth. Make games, y'all. Like, you don't need to be gainfully employed to be building games. When you build games, you're building out your portfolio, you're building out your skill set, and you're just having fun. That's why we're in this industry, right? So continue to work on games and then put yourself out there as much as you can and take chances wherever you can. So Nick applied to these internships, happened to land it. I love that somebody reached out to you on LinkedIn. I think that's a testament to you just like, I don't have control. I'm just going to work on some cool games, put myself out there a little bit. And then it happened to work out for you as well in this most recent job. So yeah, like maybe the rule is it does take a little bit of luck, but just like make sure you've made a bed for the luck so it's nice and comfortable when it gets here.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think you guys just had recently you just on this podcast you guys talked with oh man, who was you just the last guy and I've talked with him a bunch. I don't know why I can't think of who you guys just had on the podcast, but
Can you tell me like where they worked or what they a little bit more about them?
yeah, he's like a systems designer. I've talked with him on LinkedIn a few times, and I've even just mentioned him in
Sean?
different because.
Is it
Um,
Sean? I'll look it up. Keep talking.
but like, yeah, I kind of. I think we should. Yeah, take the time. I'm gonna take the time to talk about LinkedIn really quickly.
Hmm.
Not really quickly. I actually want to. I think I want to kind of give some advice on this, especially because I've learned a lot. Like I went from I think like about a year ago, 2 years ago. Yeah, no, actually I was at school at the time. Like I was struggling just to kind of like really be on LinkedIn. Like when the first time I actually got like somebody actually like talk with me, was like he was a senior designer, game designer at Sony Santa Monica, and it was like the first time like anybody at like a senior level would actually talk with me.
Hmm.
And I like that was like such a struggle, honestly, because it's just like how do I how do I talk with this guy without annoying him, but also getting the information that I need in a very efficient way?
Hmm.
Um, and I think since from then, and like especially this last year, like I've learned a lot about just like I'll be honest, like this past 5 days, this is my fifth meeting with somebody like a developer designer. I've had 5 meetings this just from last Saturday to today. Um, just meeting with like developers in our industry and um I don't always meet like all the time with people, but like I think one of those things that nobody talks about is like yes, go network, but you network to go talk with other developers and designers and stuff. And you'll just learn stuff. You'll learn stuff that you'll never learn in school or even
Hmm.
working in an engine sometimes. Like people will give you perspectives and insights that you just didn't even know existed.
Hmm.
Um and like any if you ever talked with me, if you ever like I talk about this like if you've like I've anybody I've met with. I've even had it's funny because like I'm nobody, but like I've had like college students reach out to me asking me advice about like just different things. Like I had a guy like a month ago like reach out to me about level design. He's doing like he's like at his master's program. And he's doing this like stealth game, and he was asking me like level design. I'm like, well, there's like level design is like a very if you follow me on LinkedIn, you've seen like my big post and like level design is confusing. Um, but like there is no right way. There's many ways to do level design. But to kind of stay on the tangent of LinkedIn, it's just like if you're not like, and I'm not saying constantly, but if you're not it's like yeah, you want to be put yourself out there from a social media standpoint, but if you're not talking with devs, like this is great. I think what like having this having like people learning from the people that talk at these podcasts is great. But for people in the audience, like you guys, it doesn't have to be all the time, but just like even if it's like once a month or bi-weekly. At one point, I was doing like once a week or several times a week meeting with people. But like if you're just meeting with people, especially developers in your specialization, you will just have such a better understanding of like the job, what companies are looking for, what other developers think, what other levels are like you know, um, and just trying to be able to like you'll be able to actually shift through like what's true and what's not, because that's like one of the
Hmm.
big issues for juniors and even me. Like even now, I'm still trying to figure out what's true and what's not true. Um, like you'll be able to actually shift on that information by yourself, and I think that's one of those things. Is you'll see stuff all the time. People will tell you to do this, this, and that. And it's like who do I actually listen to?
Ooh,
Um,
sorry,
and
everybody.
like, yeah, there really is no right answer. Like, I'm gonna say it as it is. There's no one thing fits all. Um, you really just have to kind of like learn and figure it out for yourself. Like nobody's gonna be able to tell
Mhm.
you. Like, like this week I had a great meeting with guy named Zach Phillips, and he's like one of the original producers for like Epic Games all the way back. He goes all the way back from Epic when they just started out with Unreal and Tournament and everything. And he was like, he has like one hell of a resume. This guy, like, I've talked with a bunch of people, but I haven't talked with somebody of this caliber ever before. I mean, I've talked with design directors stuff like that, but like I've never met like somebody of his capacity. He works at this, I mean, he kind of consults the studio that I work at, but I just wanted to be with him. But he just gave me like some advice that was just like just at a different caliber than what
Mhm.
I get advice from all sorts of people when I talk and get different information, but I mean like just his level of wisdom was just like beyond anybody I have ever talked to, and I've talked to a lot of people this year. Um,
Yeah, I think
so
I
like
mean like I think if nothing else, that's maybe the first. That is one of the biggest pieces of advice I would also echo, and I think is a really great point that you're bringing up to the audience. Was just like reach out to people and learn from them. I've said this to all of y'all on this podcast numerous times. I started this podcast for exactly this reason, to make sure that I was consistently on a regular basis picking people's brains and getting information, thoughts, and expanding my universe with smart, cool people like yourself, Nick. And it doesn't take a lot. I'm actually curious, like, what is your some people are the main pushback that I get when I tell people to make sure you're learning from other people and networking is one, well, I'm a shy introvert. All of us are shy introverts. We work in game development. And two, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to make the approach. And then maybe like three, kind of a subset of two, is I feel like I'm annoying them. So give me your responses to that. Like, what are your top tips, I guess, on how to initiate those conversations, how to find people, and how to schedule a call with them, how to actually get that on the books.
I think the key thing first, you need to build up your LinkedIn. If you don't have like 500 connections, just go ahead and do that. It doesn't matter. Just go ahead and just start following people. You'll build it up, and it took me like maybe like a month or two to be honest. Um, do that first. That way, it just gives you some sense of credibility. Like if you only have like if you're a college student, and you have like 50 connections. Like most people probably aren't going to talk to you. And I don't mean that to be like rude or anything. It's just yeah, people are looking like they want to see like you're active on LinkedIn. You have 500 plus connections. Like they know you. I think you talked about this in another podcast. Like you have like connections with them, like second, third connections with them. Like you're not somebody that you're not just some random person. Like you're somebody who is part of like the the LinkedIn community. Um, especially for your specific specialization. So I think that's definitely step one. Once you have that, it's just a matter of like just especially if you're like a first connection, like if you actually connected with somebody, um, just reach out to them, DM them, like keep it very simple. Um, you don't want to say like too much. I think that's if you're gonna like say like, hey, this is me, this is what I've done, like, oh, I love to talk about this and that, like just DM somebody like you're DMing some like your friend, like just like yeah, like just like, hey, how you doing this week? I saw your post. That keep it really short. Um, and then from there, like you just talk about just industry stuff. Talk about what you see on LinkedIn. Like if that's part of the reason why you kind of need to listen. I don't like you shouldn't be scrolling on LinkedIn like all day, but you should check it. Um, you got to manage your social media in a way that's healthy. But a lot of the same people will see a lot of the same stuff if you're like in a specific, you know, specialization. Like I see level design stuff all the time, and I can talk about like level design stuff I see with other level designers, or just tools, right? Like I had a conversation at level like with a mission designer from one of the laid off Blizzard employees. We were just talking about UE5 and like UEFN, and just chatted about that. Um, So yeah, just try to find like some level of just like something they're going to be somewhat interested in. Um, and talk about that, and just be like, hey, I'd love to talk with you more. Just let's set up a time. And I think this is where it kind of gets like this is probably the actual hardest part, especially for somebody who's not meeting with people on a consistent basis. Like you'll get all sorts of people. You're gonna get a lot of people, especially like even like junior, mid level, even some senior level people are like, this is how the game industry works. You're a junior and you need to understand how the game industry works. And I am him. I am Kojima. Um,
Did you get Kojima on a call?
no,
Oh, okay.
man,
I was
dude, if I
excited.
could get Kojima, Miyazaki, or Miyamoto on a call, dude, I would.
That's it. You've peaked. You're done. You can stop now.
Yeah, dude, I would love to talk about that. They just dropped the Shadow of Erdtree trailer this morning. I'm just
Hmm.
like, this is amazing. But yeah, so this is when yeah, it's when things get tough when you actually get in a conversation with somebody because like
Hmm.
you have to figure out like, okay, what they're telling me right and what they're telling me them kind of like babbling on about their opinion.
Hmm.
Um yeah, there's a lot of people that will tell you, especially juniors, they think like not that they think, they are just like, ejecting their own kind of emotions onto you. And you want to
Hmm.
the key thing is just to listen and try to let them spiel, let them tell you everything that they know, but guide that spiel to the what you need, right?
Hmm.
um so you're playing a video game, the enemy just keeps like attacking you with like a bunch of different auto attacks, just wait for the parry and then go for the riposte. Like it's just um that's
Thank you for
that's
putting that in language that we'll understand.
Yeah, it really is like that. And it's not just like in these meetings, but it's just in like conversations and meetings in life. It's just like, dude, a lot of dude, I talk a lot, and my mom talk like literally for my mom. My mom talks a lot, like as especially if I'm anxious, like I will talk a lot, and I will tell you all these different things and my opinions, and everybody does that. I don't care, like unless you just have emotional intelligence at a different level and you're just like in a good place and you know, a lot of people aren't necessarily like, it's a tough time for everybody, right? Like as you
Yeah.
talk about the very beginning of this podcast, this last year was just tough. Um, so it's affected a lot of people, and a lot of people kind of react in that kind of manner too. So
Yeah.
the,
Try to make
the take,
themselves a little bit more comfortable, maybe.
hmm the takeaway is just let people talk. Like just focus on become a better listener. I think if you become a better listener, not only like yeah, it's gonna help you in conversation, but help you become a better designer.
Hmm.
Um, So yeah, just once you get into those calls, talk less, listen more, um, and like kind of take notes. Like, don't take notes in the middle of the meeting because some people will be like, then they'll really think you're like junior or whatever. But
I
take
take
your
notes. I
no,
always
but I
take
mean
notes.
like no, like right
Like
now you're
while
taking
they're talking.
that's
Yeah.
that's I mean that's I think it is good to take notes.
Hmm.
Um, but like you want to try to some people will just automatically be like, hey, they think they like know more than you, and some people are more just like very chill and laid back.
Hmm.
Um, I wouldn't take the notes that people that are like they want to like they know more about the industry than you. Like you're a junior, they're really pressing the fact that you're a junior. Those are the people that I would say like maybe not take notes from, take it with a grain of salt, and like take it like that's the people. Those are the people you're waiting to parry or post basically.
Hmm.
Um, And the other people, like a good example is like Nathan Kilman. I love that dude. He's like
Hmm.
big bro. Like I just chatted with him like last weekend. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
He'll just tell you as he's one of those people just like chill, tell you as it is. Just talk about portfolio, talk about industry, like I talk about how he's doing, like how I'm
Hmm.
doing. Um, like like we even talked about like kind of my own work with him and just like he's even interested potentially in like our little studio. It's just like you talk like he's one of those people like I'm just trying to grow like relationship with because
Yeah.
he's a good guy.
Yeah.
And like that's the other part of it too with these meetings is like picking and choosing who you are actually trying to like foster relationships with in the long term. um just especially with like other junior, other mid-level or even senior level people in your specializations. Like those are the people when you're like probably looking for work, like those are people that are going to help you out.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and like
I think there's I want to call out a couple of the things that you've said here because there's some good stuff for the audience. And if anybody has further questions, drop them in the chat for Nick. The you gave us like a couple of steps that I want to echo because that helps people remember and it helps me remember. The steps as I heard them from you. You can correct me if you have anything extra here or anything you would change. Number one is just build up the community, and that's a lot easier said than that's a lot easier done than you might think. Actually, all it takes is like looking up cool people and sending a connect request. And even the big names will more often than you would think accept those requests. So you can wind up in people's DMs pretty quickly, and some pretty like big people. And even if they aren't that big, look like a couple of years ahead of you. So look for some of those junior developers or mid-level developers in fields that you're interested in at companies that you're interested in. So number one, just build up the community. Send a bunch of connection requests on LinkedIn. Once you do have those people, reach out to them, send them a personal message, and send that message like you're a friend, which I think is a wonderful tip. You're talking a lot about sort of like hierarchical relationships where one person like thinks of you as a junior and that winds up giving like resulting in kind of a worse relationship, which I would 100% echo and think is true. There are people out there who are really focused on hierarchy, and those people are a lot more frustrating to deal with, and I would say generally give you less like genuine help and guidance. And so I think coming at people as a friend rather than as like a, oh my God, you're this amazing developer from this company that I really care about, I think almost diffuses that instantly. It's just like, hey man, I'm really trying to figure out how to do this thing, and you seem like you know what that is. Could we chat a little bit? Come at them like a friend. I think that's a great tip. And then talk industry is another great tip there. It doesn't need to be, you don't need to be like movie superhero clever or whatever. Just be like, I'm trying to figure out how to do freaking level placement, and I'm like having real issues. Are you working on that at all? Or whatever. Especially if you have a specific actual problem or thing you're struggling with, that can be great. I'm curious. Here, I've got actually two more that I pulled out, and then I've got a question for you. So, guide the spiel, I think, is great. That is definitely a learned skill, and you'll get better at it over time. And you don't want to be too obvious about it, but definitely, like, you're in this call for you. You don't want to be like, you don't want to be selfish per se, but you also don't want to let the conversation just go somewhere that is totally useless, because then you're wasting like both your times, kind of. So guide the spiel. Decide when to use that repost, and then talk less, listen more. I think is another good one as well. So here's my follow up question. The part that I think is probably most difficult for people is transitioning to an actual call. So you've like started to have a conversation with somebody, you're having a good time. How do you actually get them on the phone, and do you get them on the phone? Are most of these connections you're talking about just over text, or at what point do you transition to an actual phone call?
It kind of just depends on like the person. Some people are like, dude, they're ready to get on a call, like bam. Like you can
Hmm.
schedule them. They'll literally just take like one or two messages, like, hey, dude, I saw this post. Can we talk about it? Oh yeah, dude. Like, thanks for like liking and sharing and posting it, and like, yeah, dude, I'd love to talk to you about it. Um, some people actually have posts on LinkedIn saying, hey, I do this thing. You want to talk to me about it? Hit me up. So if somebody does that, go hit them up. Like if they're asking for you to like, that's an easy win.
Major
Um,
green flag.
exactly. So so yeah, I think that's it. But then some people like, especially people that are actively working,
Hmm.
it's a little more tough with them. And even like it just yeah, you got to be very wary of who you're talking to. Yeah, so that's I think knowing do a little research, doing research. Like I hate when people say, "Oh yeah, I do research." You're not doing research. Just see who they are. Like are they super busy? Are they replying to your stuff very quickly, or are they taking like is it taking hours or days to get back to you? Um, that should tell you a lot about like their availability, how much they actually want to like essentially talk with you. Like I think there's a lot of nice people, a lot of people who are they're willing to help, but at the same time, it's like people have their lives. Excuse me. And they're busy, and it's just like they want to talk to you. Like I think a lot of developers want to talk with juniors or just mingle in the industry, but it's also like what's your priority? If you're like
Hmm.
working at a big company, you're crunching 60, 80, 100 hours a week, and like you don't even have time for your like kids. Like just you got to be cognizant of like the person you're talking to.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a that's a I think that's one of the things one of the reasons I love this podcast is because I get new perspectives and new ways of thinking about the world that I haven't used before. So one of the ones that I am taking away from you that I haven't really recommended to people before, but I think is true, is essentially like protect your time. So while yes, you are putting in hours to reach out to people and it's going to be super awesome if somebody agrees to a conversation, I'll, some of those calls, genuinely, like you could talk to the biggest, baddest person in the world. Some of those calls will be worthless or just like not that valuable. And I don't mean to be too like transactionary about it or whatever. Hopefully, this doesn't come across as too negative. But like even on this show, I would say that there's not at all a correlation with how much experience somebody has and how awesome the conversation is. We've had a couple people who haven't even had their first job come on this show that have given advice that I have never forgotten, like personally. And then I've also had people come on this show who are like big, amazing names who like ramble forever about random crap that is like really hard to manage and is not very helpful. So I think a great takeaway is try not to be like too negative or transactionary, definitely, but respect your time and respect their time. And so if you're just not getting anything out of it, that's okay. And I think you can kind of peter off the conversation. Um, I think it's also pretty obvious, I would say, and I'm curious if you agree, when you are getting something out of it, because it feels like you get something out of it like almost instantly. You'll be like 5 sentences in, you'll be like, damn, this person is like really interesting. And so it's pretty quick for you to go, okay, this is awesome. This is a great conversation that is worthy of continuing.
Yeah, I think it's all about the takeaways and how you actually use those takeaways to do practical things with. Um, because you're right, like and this is like a skill that we all need. Not even like, forget if you're a junior, mid-level, senior, whoever, right?
Right.
Director. One of the things that I'm struggling with, and something that I think like it's hard for a lot of juniors, is communicating that hey, I'm a professional. I am very skilled in these very hyper specific things. Like as a level designer, I'm really good with my player guidance and like spatial communication. I'm like really good with like using art assets to create atmosphere, or like I'm really good with environmental storytelling, and like I can really create a
Hmm.
story with just a few props. Um, or like I'm just good at laying out and just like pathing of my levels, or you know um, just those sorts of like hyper specific things, and that's just for level design. But if you're like, let's say I'm just using artist for example, right? Like your topology is like, do I do like some of like I'm an artist, let's say I do great topology, or my sculpts are really good, and like how I bake my high resolution high poly sculpts into my low
Hmm.
resolution and have the good topology with that, like like if you can talk about those things, um or I guess another example, let's say I'm like a writer, right? Let's say I'm a writer, I'm really good at writing dialogue, and I've really mastered like very specific types of dialogue, and like I can you know I use different software to facilitate that, and maybe they're even that good where it's like they've taken it to another level, and like I actually scripted like a dialogue system in Unreal, and I'm using my dialogue and presenting it that way. um like you can talk about it, and you're very specialized, you focused on like that thing, you've like got it to kind of that like high level, like
Hmm.
that's what it's probably going to get you hired. And
Hmm.
from I think that's one of the things I've learned recently is like you got to be more than comfortable. You got to be very skillful. You need to be top of class. Not
Hmm.
that you need to be top of class. I don't want to sound like, oh yeah, you need to be like Kojima or something. Like no,
That will help though.
it will. Yeah, it will help. But like it's really like as I said, I met with Zach, and one of the things that Zach, one of the tidbits I learned from Zach this week was just being very deliberate. I think it's one of the things I want to kind of pass along is like
Hmm.
as a developer, you're very deliberate in what you do, and why you do it, and the type of stuff you do. Um, you know, so you could, let's say, just whatever role you want to be. I've mastered these skills. These three skills within this very specialization, I have mastered.
Hmm.
Um, very deliberate. I've measured those skills over time, and I've practiced those skills like crazy. And like you can see it with like my work, like my and I'm not, I think one of the issues with portfolio is like you don't want to show everything, but like show your top work, and if it's really truly mastered and it's present, the other part is like presenting and communicating it in a very um well. very well way, and I can talk about that a little bit too, of how to
Mhm.
like actually present your portfolio in the right way, because I think a lot of people, like even senior, like they don't. Portfolio is like hard. It's another thing. It's inherently a whole other skill in itself.
Mhm.
Um, I'm talking about just the work for your portfolio. I'm just talking about how do you actually build a portfolio that people are going to read and engage with. Um, but um, inherently, it's like, yeah, have you mastered, like, you're an artist, like you can be artist, writer, designer, programmer. Have you mastered like those specific skills that that company is looking for, and are you the best candidate for that job? And have you done the networking, the social media, online presence? Are you out there? Are you showing that you have these skills and you're talking with others and like building relationships? If you do those things and just talk with others and learn, like I can only like say something. I only have so much perspective myself, but like if you're going around gaining perspective, you're doing the dev work, you're doing the practice, you're literally are becoming the top of your class in that specific specialization. You're going to get a job. It's just a
Mhm.
matter of time.
Yeah, I love that. Awesome. There's a it is, I think, a potential like trap maybe for indie developers is that they're tempted to learn a little bit of everything, and I totally get that. And being a really strong generalist, by the way, is kind of its own specialization, which is weird. But it
Mhm.
is a specialization. There's not that many jobs there, but there are jobs. So yes, you can be a generalist, but like just no, there's not that many jobs there, and you'll be so much weaker. Like they are specifically generalist jobs, and they will label themselves as such. But regardless, one of the big traps is, yeah, trying to do a bit of everything because it's exciting and it's fun, and we all do a bit of everything. But ultimately, I think you have to be, awesome at just a couple of things, um, and that's what gets you work in this industry. We're coming
Mhm.
towards the end of time. Misha asked a question though, so I want to get at least one community question in. Misha asks, "What is a good approach to talk with HR and recruiting versus employees? If you're trying to make a connection for the sake of connection versus like an actual recruiter or hiring manager."
I don't really know that much about talking. Like I've talked with some recruiters. I wouldn't. I don't want to say the wrong thing here, but I don't necessarily know if I'd recommend just reaching out to recruiters. Their whole job is to go like search and find the right candidates. And if you're not the right candidate in their eyes, they're probably not. They don't have that. They can't afford to spend the time to talk with you. Not that they don't. Not that they think low of you, or like you know or anything like that. It's just like they honestly, they in some ways they have it harder than we do. Like
Mhm.
they also got hit by like the massive layoffs, and they're struggling just as much. I mean, Justin, who was on this podcast like not even long ago, he was, and dude, everybody is getting hit. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Like, like it really doesn't matter. It's just, anywho, the point is, it's like, I don't know if I would recommend just reaching out to HR people. Like, I would really recommend reaching out to other devs. And if you have the portfolio, you have the online presence, they're gonna come to you. I've seen that. Like, I'm starting to get more recruiters come to me now because it's like I've built a presence online. I have the portfolio to show it, and like, yeah. To kind of quickly talk about the whole specialization over the journalist thing, I think it's very true that over the last 5 years, companies have really scaled back and focused on specialization. But if you hyper specialize and you don't know anything else about any other like part of game development, you're just not going to be a great game developer. And
Hmm.
I don't want to say anything like there's a balance to it, right? Like at my own like in my own group guys, like yeah, I'm a level designer, but I'm doing systems. Like I'm doing like this ailment system with this like hazard, like basically like player gets affected in different ways. I'm doing
Hmm.
the locomotion. Um, I'm doing like some sounds and I'm doing like VFX. I'm doing some tech art and like some post process look dev, and like I do a little bit of everything. But inherently, I am a level designer. That is what I am. That's what I do. That's what I want to do in my career. I want to make content for games. I don't necessarily make the mechanics and systems. I can do those things to an extent. Um, Maybe not at a triple A level, but I can. I'm pretty happy with my blueprinting skills, and I'm learning the script and um, verse and all that jazz. And I have a little bit of C and C++ under my belt. I don't call myself a software engineer, but like everybody still needs to know like um, I'd recommend like if you say you're in the industry, like some just basic skills, like learn how to do some basic 3D modeling, learn how to write a very short story, um, learn how to design a very basic mechanic. It could just be like a jump with a dash. Um, if you want to learn about programming, just jump in, just learn like do an hour of C++. Nothing crazy, but just like okay, this is like a for loop for English. This is a for loop. This is a while loop. This is this is like a boolean. These are your different variables, your ints, your floats. Like understanding the difference between a double and a single, or like the reason why for example, like when you're an artist and you have your color scale is 256. Well, why is it 256? Well, it's 256 because that's and it's like it's 32 what is that? I'm trying to remember now exactly, but um it's basically how many bits you have of storage to actually holds the color information. um so it's like just having a little bit of understanding of like, hey, here's art theory, here's some game design theory or level design, here's some like just software engineering, just computer science, basic computer science stuff, here's some basic like writing stuff. um you should know all these, like you should have a basic understanding of these things.
Hmm. I totally agree. We had I'm forgetting all of my guest names at this point. We had an old friend of mine on a long time ago who talked about the T approach, which is like you should have a general understanding of most things, but a depth of understanding in just one specialized area. And I think that tends to be true. You want to be able to talk to the engineers without it just feeling like black magic, and you want to be able to talk to the artists and understand why they want you to do X, Y, and Z. But you also really want to be, yes, T-shaped experience. Perfect, thank you, Mark. Um, but you want to, in general, be really specialized in just that one area, at least at this point in time, the current meta of game development. Now, we're pretty much at the end of time here. Before we say goodbye, we love to ask for homework on this show. So, Nick, I'm curious if you have something that you can ask the audience to do in the next week. It'll take them about an hour to help practice some of what you've told us here today.
Yeah, I would say if you've chosen your specialization, I would like you to try just write out like a few skills, like develop your own understand your skill tree
Hmm.
um for that specialization, and just pick two, maybe three things and just hone in on those for the next like for just this week or just like the next 2 weeks or month. Just hone in on those things and just see how that goes.
I love that. We've actually talked about developing skill trees for the different disciplines. So if you build one, definitely tag us with this one because we're curious about this. If you post it live, it'll be best to put it on LinkedIn, and then you can tag us at Indie Game Academy. And if you want to keep it a little bit more personal, you can drop it here in the Discord. There's links to join us down below. That's a great piece of homework. Write out your skill tree. What do you want to work on, and what is the skill tree you need? Nick, is there anything at the end here that you'd like to promote, or any last messages you want to give the audience?
Um, just I would just say like just focus on your online presence. Like there are people out there that really are going to help you. Um, and things will be fine. Like you're going to get through it. I'm going to get through it. We're all going to get through it. Um, just have your fellow developers backs. I would say
Hmm.
like just we're in this together. I don't think enough people realize that.
I love that. Yeah, it's not us versus each other. It's us versus the world? Question mark. Unemployment? Question mark. The negative aspects of late stage capitalism? Question mark. I don't know. Love it. All right, Nick. It's been a wonderful time talking with you, man. I appreciate you being here and answering some of our questions, giving us some insights on networking and skill building. Audience, thank you for being here, for the questions that you had. And listeners, of course, thank you for listening. As always, we ask that if you enjoyed the episode, you think of one other person who might enjoy it, one other person who might benefit from it, and send it along to them for us. All right, Nick, we're going to say goodbye. Thank you, man.
Thanks, Will.
Adios.